John Malkovich, Thomas Mann, and Rosa Salazar in a quirky reincarnation sci-fi movie. Let's talk about Chariot. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watcher Pass, and today I'm talking about Chariot, which is releasing in theaters, digital, and on demand on April 15th, 2022. It's a quirky sci-fi thriller that has a great cast headlined by John Malkovich and Shane West, but also has Thomas Mann, Scout Taylor-Compton, Vernon Davis, and Rosa Salazar. My hot take is I think you should rent it. It's a confusing movie. I don't think it's meant to be understood. I think it's going to leave you scratching your head. But overall, I really like the cast. I really like the music, and the general quirk was a refreshing thing to see. So I'm going to tell you a little more about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers. If you don't want to know what happens in the film, you don't want to know what happens at the end, I would turn this off maybe around the things I didn't like. That's probably where I will get a little bit of spoilers, but definitely at the ending. So in Chariot, you have Thomas Mann playing Harrison Hardy, who is being treated by John Malkovich, who plays Dr. Karn. They are having psychotherapy sessions. He's trying to unpack this dream he's been having. He's having this recurring dream over and over where he's in his old house that he grew up in, and he goes towards the attic, and there's a pull string for the attic. Thing is, his house didn't have an attic, so he's trying to figure out what this means, and John Malkovich is helping him do that. Also, he's moving into this new apartment building that is full of this very interesting, quirky cast of characters that are all very strange and unique, but all seem to kind of know about each other. It's an interesting setup where you've got like people who they have history, and then people can kind of like detect who you are, and they know instantly who you are because it's a new person. It's a very weird scenario, but it does lead to some interesting encounters. And early on, he meets Maria, played by Rosa Salazar, and despite their less than ideal meeting, they become quick friends, and she kind of helps show him around the building, show him some other people, and throughout his time he meets other tenants in this building, but he keeps coming back to this dream. But the central question that we always come back to is, what does this dream mean? And as he makes more progress in the dream and kind of sees some more about what this scenario holds, you find out more about the overall situation of Chariot. So things I liked about this movie: the first, I love the music. The music is really, really good. It kind of features Nessun Dorma, Pavarotti's version of Nessun Dorma from Turandot, which is a great opera to have, and it really kind of makes those scenes kind of pop with this like booming opera sound. You also have as you would expect in a sci-fi thriller, some like electronic sci-fi music that does a good job of setting the mood. So I liked having both of them, and I liked having that kind of generally good soundtrack. I always think that for an indie film, if you have a good soundtrack, it really does help to elevate it and help to kind of give it an extra shine, and this film definitely has that. The second thing I love is the cast. I mean, the cast is a very interesting, eclectic one, just kind of like the scenario here, but they all kind of dug in, they all bought in and did a really good job. So Thomas Mann was relatable in his like confusion, and also just kind of, he didn't really understand what was going on, which I think is good because the audience also doesn't really understand what's going on, so it kind of fits perfectly. Rosa Salazar is a nice foil to him. She is very quirky. She kind of says some very interesting things in their meetings, and she also knows the building and knows the tenants, so she kind of helps him to meet all the people in here. So you also have Scout Taylor-Compton, who plays a very weird person, and I didn't love how her character changed, but I think she did a really good job in doing that. There's a very interesting scene later on that must have been difficult to shoot that she does a very, very good job with. I also really liked having Vernon Davis in this. Vernon Davis plays this kind of like almost like nerdy person, nerdy, weird person. It's not what I expected him, and I think it was really awesome that he tried to go out there and stretch his acting chops. He gets a little bit more of a dramatic role, and I really liked him in it. And then, of course, you have John Malkovich, who is he's great in everything, and he has a pretty substantial role. He's not in a lot of the movie, but his character recurs throughout, so you get to see a decent amount of him throughout. And then also Shane West plays a later role, but his character was also really good. So overall, I just really liked the cast. They were all very different, but they all did a very good job. And the last thing I liked is the quirk. I mean, it's a weird movie. I keep saying that, but it is a weird movie. But I did like kind of exploring this and seeing all these weird scenarios and these strange interactions, and just trying to unpack and figure out what was going on. I don't think I actually unpacked everything, but I have a general sense of it. And so I'm going to go into that shortly after I talk about what I didn't like. Things I didn't like. I kind of come back to this. It's confusing. It's a confusing movie. You don't really know what's happening. You don't really know what's going on. The ending does kind of tie it all together. But even then, some of these characters that you meet are still very odd, and I'm gonna try to like give my thoughts on it, but I don't think you were ever supposed to really understand what happens in this movie. It seems like it's a slice of life in this kind of larger picture, and you don't really get the larger picture. You get this just kind of general slice of this situation. The second thing I didn't really love is, it felt a little bit short. I know I often say movies feel long. This one felt a little short, and I think it's because I wanted to have some more interactions between the characters. I wanted to see maybe them in different scenarios. I wanted to see kind of more of how they interact within this hotel apartment building. So I kind of just wish I could have spent more time with them. It feels like you get a good sense of that in the middle, and then the opening is kind of confusing, and the ending shifts very differently. So you don't really get the strange, quirky characters anymore. So I kind of wish there was more time in the middle where we could see more interactions. I would like to see more of these characters interact, and also some more strange people in this apartment. And the last thing I didn't love is the opening. The opening is confusing, and it made me think the film was a very different film than it was. I think I get what the opening was, but it threw me off, and it kind of made me think that this was going to be a very different film. You get this kind of like Western thriller opening, this like old West style opening, and then you instantly jump into kind of like a more modern time. And so that kind of made me question like what all was going on. And then at the end, I think you generally get it, but it is a weird way to start this film. So going into the ending, Harrison, right, in the movie they call him Harry. Harry and Rosa Salazar's character Maria, they become quick. They become a couple fairly quickly. They spend a lot of time together. But he also meets some other characters. You got Lauren, played by Scout Taylor-Compton, who also is inhabited by like I think an 18th century British man named Oliver. And Oliver is a very uncouth person. Lauren is a very nice person. And so they kind of pop in and out. It's always Scout Taylor-Compton. She has to kind of switch between this like normal nice person and then this like uncouth British person. And it's an interesting thing. I didn't love Oliver's character, but Scout Taylor-Compton did a really good job of doing that switch and like switching her demeanor up and trying to like really emote and let you know that this was a different character. You also meet Vernon Davis's character David, who is this like zookeeper whose whole job is to try to watch over these very, very endangered turtles. And they're the only two left, and his whole job is to try to get them to mate. And so he basically talks about like trying to do different things to get these two turtles to mate to kind of continue their species because they're the only ones left. And he has some funny lines when like Harry says things to kind of console him, but given the nature of like these animals might become extinct, his consolation lines just feel kind of hollow. But you meet all these characters, and then eventually it switches to this like office environment where Rory Calhoun, played by Shane West, is kind of the boss. And so he is interviewing people, and Maria, who is Harry's, I guess, girlfriend at this time, goes for an interview. Now, Lauren is already there, and we never knew what she did, but I guess Lauren works at this office building. So she, meets Maria there, kind of tells her good luck, and sends her in to go see Rory Calhoun. You don't really know what's happening there because they all like look different, very different. But so Maria goes in to see Rory Calhoun, and then we don't hear from her again. And Harry starts getting these calls with this like almost Mothman style voice thing saying like, help me. And so he's obviously distraught. He goes to see Maria, and Maria's not there. Like Maria's apartment is completely cleared out. It's been repainted. She had a very, very busy, quirky apartment, and now is just like completely cleared out and painted. So Harry obviously gets concerned, and so he goes to speak to his therapist to try to figure out like what does this all mean and what's going on. And he also has been making more progress on his dream. Before he would only like look up and see the attic. Now he was able to pull down the attic and go up into it. And inside there were pictures, all these pictures. Some people he knew, some people he didn't know, but just all these Polaroid pictures littering the attic. So he doesn't know what that means. He's also concerned about Maria. So he talks to Dr. Karn. And while he's doing his session with Dr. Karn, the phone rings. And Harry's been getting like nonstop calls from this like ghostly voice that we think is Maria. And Dr. Karn's like, oh, like it must be nothing. It must be broken. So he unplugs it, and the phone rings again. And he's like, Harry's like, you should pick it up. He's like, the phone is unplugged. I can't pick it up. And he's like, it's clearly ringing. Pick it up. And I think then Harry picks it up, and it's that voice again saying, help me. And so he returned the call that had been going to his cell phone, and it went to Rory Calhoun's office. Rory Calhoun actually picked up and said, something like Rory Calhoun. And so he knew where to go. So after Harry hears that "help me" voice, he runs back to his apartment and he goes to check Maria's room, and it's empty. It was empty now, but he hadn't checked before, but now the room is empty. And so he's in his room trying to figure out what to do, and Lauren comes over. But it's not Lauren, it's Oliver. And Oliver uh pulls a gun on him and like basically says like they want to do this, but they can't get in here, so I have to do it for you. And then he starts reciting this riddle that Dr. Connor tried to recite as well earlier, but got interrupted by the phone calls. So Oliver starts reciting this riddle, and it involves it's three men. They're going to an inn. I'll recite the full one later when you actually hear the riddle. But he starts doing that. But then Lauren takes over, and she starts to like fight Oliver. But Oliver is her, so it's this interesting scene where she is like fighting herself. Like she'll strangle herself when it's Oliver, and then like snap out of it and say like run, but then like slap herself. It's an interesting scene, and it must have been tough to do because she has to kind of switch personas, and she kind of has to sell that by herself. So Lauren gets control briefly and tells Harry to run. So he runs out of the room. And then it's really weird because he's in the lobby of this hotel and he's just like casually walking. I expected him to be running down the entire way. But he's like casually walking. He sees a hammer, picks up the hammer, and then like casually walks out. I thought that was a little weird, but whatever, it's fine. Maybe he didn't want to make a scene. Maybe that's what it was. So now Harry, armed with a hammer, goes to Rory Calhoun's office. Basically, he confronts Rory, but is captured and taken away by the police. And after the police take him away, we see something packed up in a Mercedes, and Lauren slash Oliver is there. And I think Harry is in the Mercedes. I think he was thrown in the trunk and driven away. And as the car is driving away, Oliver slash Lauren say, "See ya, Harry." So he's taken to some like abandoned building. I think it's a grain silo, and he's taken inside, and we see Dr. Karn slash John Malkovich. And Dr. Karn finally recites the riddle. So the riddle is, and I'm going to paraphrase some of it, but I'll get most of it here. Three brothers are traveling along a road at night. They stop at an inn, and the cost is 30 gold pieces. They each pay 10. The manager decides to give them a discount. He gives 5 gold pieces to a bellhop and tells him to return it to the men. The bellhop decides he cannot divide it evenly between the three. He pockets 2 for himself and returns 1 to each. So now they've given 9 apiece. 9 gold pieces times 3 men is 27. The bellhop pocketed 2. Add that to the 27, you've got 29. But you started with 30. Where is the missing piece? And I think it's kind of a perspective puzzle, right? Because when you do that math, yeah, it comes out to 29. But what you have to remember is the cost of the room was 25 because the manager gave him a discount. So they all gave 9. So that's 27 gold pieces that they gave to the hotel, but the bellhop pocketed 2. So that's the 25. That's the 25 that they used to pay for the room. They each got their 1 back. So you don't take the 27 and add the 2 because that wasn't used to pay for the room. You have to look at the 25, and if you want to do the math backwards, you take the 25 that they paid to the inn, take the 2 pocketed by the bellhop, and the 1 that they each pocket, and that's 30. That's how you kind of solve the riddle. But it's an interesting thought puzzle. After Dr. Karn says that, he puts on this like death mask. This like it looks kind of like almost like a plague mask, except it's a more sci-fi kind of plague mask. And then we see the dream that Harry's been having, and Harry's up in the attic, and in the attic is Dr. Karn with the mask. And he tells him, that this isn't personal. You live, you die, you live, you die. And they collect a picture each time. That's why the attic was littered with pictures. He says, sometimes there's a glitch. Generally, no one has any idea why it happens. But in your case, it was a girl. He says that whatever the problem is, when there is one, they send him to clean it up. They send Dr. Karn to clean it up. So basically, kind of what my thought was is that, this is some sort of like reincarnation type setting. You don't really know why. Like there's something kind of overseeing this world, and they're trying to like reincarnate these people. And normally you just kind of live your life and then restart, and they kind of keep a small record of. But occasionally you get someone who is able to kind of like, I don't know, pierce that veil or see this other side. And so in that instance, that person can cause some problems, so they have to clean it up, and that's why Dr. Karn is there to clean it up. I kind of thought of this when I was trying to think of like similar analogies as like kind of like the Matrix, like where Neo is the one, and so when that happens, he sees things that other people are not supposed to see. He's able to do things that other people aren't able to do, and so then they send the architect to clean that up, to like reinsert him into the code and fix that glitch until the next Neo pops up, and until the next one pops up. So that's kind of how I thought about this. And in this instance, it seems like Dr. Karn is going to be destroying kind of like this whole chain, or this whole like section of the code, or this whole section of the world, and restarting. You see him as he's talking, he's like pouring lighter fluid around the pictures, and then he lights them on fire, and the pictures start to burn, And the one that we see towards the end is the picture of this girl that he's been kind of like fixated on that starts to burn as well. So you think, okay, movie's over. But there's another scene, and so we see two people going to dinner. They're going to dinner at it's a man and a woman, and they're going to dinner at the man's brother's house. So they get there, and the two brothers start talking, and the female companion looks up to the stairs. And there's another female companion coming down, and their eyes meet, and they smile. And so I think that what this is Harry and Maria in like future lives, and they're meeting again, and their glitch or whatever, their spark is happening again. And so this is again going to be another glitch in the system, glitch in the matrix, and this is going to start another chain reaction that will then probably lead to Dr. Karn having to clean it up. But that seems like maybe it's inevitable, maybe it'll happen more. But that's just kind of my thoughts on what was happening. Like I said, it's a confusing movie. I don't really think that you are supposed to understand it. It's kind of just this thought experiment. But I did like a lot of that. So I definitely think it's a rental, and you can check it out on April 15, 2022. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.